I was looking at turntables on Amazon recently when I came across this one, which really caught my eye because of its extremely low price. It's the 1x1 Rock Pigeon turntable. The price is $59.99, and when I happened to see it, it also had a 10% discount coupon, so the total price ended up being $53. So even with tax, the final price I ended up paying was less than $60 with free shipping. And unlike every other record player in that price range, it does not use a ceramic cartridge and one of the cheap BSR-derived mechanisms that's been around since the 1980s. Instead, it uses an Audio-Technica AT3600L magnetic cartridge, and the tone arm also has an adjustable counterweight. It also has a built-in phono preamp and also built-in speakers. And it has a nice wood grain cabinet with a clear dust cover, and the platter appears to have stroke marks around the edge, so it really looks like a proper turntable at a toy-like price. So far the reviews have been mixed with only a 3-star rating, but not because of anything wrong with the design of the turntable itself. Instead, the negative reviews are because of shipping damage causing broken dust covers and hinges. So that may be the sign of a cheap, flimsy design, or maybe just bad luck. So I'll see if the one I ordered ends up with the same kind of damage. And here it is, the Rock Pigeon Professional Turntable with AT needle. And you know it's got to be good because it says professional on it. Here are the specifications printed directly on the box. It runs on 9 volts DC, it weighs 4.58 kilograms, so what is that, about 10 pounds? It's a belt drive turntable, runs at 33 1/3 and 45 RPM, so it does not have 78 RPM. Signal to noise ratio is 35 dB, which is pretty bad. Cartridge type is moving magnet, and it says the needle is an Audio-Technical. I don't know if that's a knockoff of Audio-Technica AT3600L. It has a plastic platter, 10-inch diameter, so it's not quite full size. Output power is 3 watts into 2 channels. So that would be for the built-in speakers, which it doesn't even look like it has, so they must be in the bottom. And there's the official model number, 1-AD07US03. And here it is. It has a very shiny and reflective clear plastic cover. And underneath has a nice wood grain finish. There's that Audio-Technica cartridge, adjustable counterweight. It is a plastic platter, but you get a felt platter mat, and the whole mechanism is mounted on springs to isolate it from vibrations. Also in the box you get 4 of these Ziploc bags to store records in. I guess these are for the people who like to put record jackets on their wall as artwork. When you do that you need somewhere to store the records, and I guess you could put them in these. You also get the power supply, 9 volts DC, a cartridge alignment protractor, a card saying that if you register the product you get a 2-year warranty and a 90-day refund guarantee. Another card advertising a free gift of either a record storage holder, a replacement stylus, a vinyl record, or a record cleaning kit. I looked this up. The free record, you only get one choice. It's Michael Jackson's Thriller album. You also get a 45 RPM adapter with no place to put it, which is one of my pet peeves. It used to be that every turntable had a post or recess to store the adapter, but you rarely see that anymore on new turntables. And finally, you also get the owner's manual. Unfortunately, just like those negative reviews on Amazon, mine also showed up with a broken dust cover. This corner is quite badly cracked, as is this corner. And the owner's manual, it gives you instructions for how to install the dust cover, but it came pre-installed, and that may be part of the problem, because if this was packed separately it could be protected on all sides by styrofoam, but having it come pre-installed, the bottom edge of it is always going to be directly against this wooden base of the turntable, which does not give it any impact protection while it's in transit, so that's why these corners are prone to cracking. But a more important problem with mine is that the counterweight doesn't even remotely fit the tone arm. It just slides freely because the hole in the counterweight is too large for the size of the tone arm that it's supposed to be mounted onto. You can see the tone arm has a spiral thread on it, which you stick on the counterweight and you twist to adjust it, but this just moves freely. They must have given me the wrong counterweight. The owner's manual says that, well, it says cartridge, I assume they mean counterweight, only goes up to 2 grams for one rotation of the tracking force dial, meaning you will need to make more than one rotation to reach 3.5 grams, which is the recommended tracking force of the cartridge. Well, on this counterweight, you can clearly see that it goes up to 3.5 and then it goes back to 0 at what would be 4 grams instead of the 2 grams they said in the manual. So I'm pretty sure this is the wrong counterweight for this turntable. Normally this would be a showstopper, but I was able to jury-rig the counterweight in place with some blue tack, which is not edible.
Lance has no idea what blue tack is.
Do you chew it?
No, you don't chew it.
Can you eat it?
You can't eat it. No.
It's not good.
No. But that is what we can use. Stop eating it. It's not edible.
Is it gum?
It's not gum.
I jammed the counterweight as far forward as it goes, and with that in place, the tracking force I get is right around 3.1 grams, which is fine for this cartridge. Obviously, I will be returning this turntable because it's unacceptable for it to come with a cracked dust cover and the completely wrong counterweight that doesn't even fit. Just hoping that if you buy one of these, it will show up with the correct counterweight and not this wrong one. Another thing I don't like is how loosey-goosey this tone arm base is. It's all plastic. It just feels like it's too loose. And what may appear to be screws on top of the head shell are just decorations. The screws holding the cartridge in place are actually on the bottom and they're at a fixed position. So I don't know why it comes with this cartridge alignment protractor when there's nothing to align. The cartridge is at a fixed position. I guess the only thing you can really do with it is just double check the alignment it comes with. But you do get a cueing lever to gently lower the stylus onto the record and raise it up again. Here's the plastic platter. You do have to hook on the belt yourself when you install it. And those are what appear to be strobe marks on the edge, but I'll have to check out if those are real or if they're just a decoration. There are the controls for on, off, and volume for the built-in speakers, and a speed selector switch for 33 and 45 RPM. It's a nice click to it. Here's the back panel. There's the 9-volt DC input, a selector switch for phono, line, and turntable. Now, this is a little bit confusing because you would think phono and turntable mean the same thing, but phono is for an unamplified direct output from the phono cartridge for use with an external preamp or a receiver that has a phono input. Or you can select line output, which provides a line level output for connecting to a pair of powered speakers or a stereo system with an aux type input, and turntable is for using the built-in speakers. So I guess that means if you use the built-in speakers, then these outputs are disabled. I also noticed it doesn't come with any cables for these RCA outputs, and it appears to have a trimmer for adjusting something here. I don't know what that would be for, maybe the speed of the motor. Here's the bottom. It has nice rubber feet on it, which grip the surface well, doesn't slide around when you're using it. Those may appear to be trimmers for adjusting the motor speed, but that's not actually above the motor. If you look through there, all you can see is a circuit board. And up front here are the grills for the built-in speakers. Here's a better look at the speakers with the bottom cover removed. It has two 2-inch drivers and a center passive radiator, which helps to improve the bass response, or at least it would if this acoustic chamber wasn't so small. As you'd expect for the price, this is a very no-frills turntable. For example, there is no Bluetooth, no USB output, no MP3 recording or anything high-tech like that, and there's also no auto stop or auto return on the tone arm. In fact, as soon as you turn it on, the platter starts spinning, and the only way to get it to stop is to turn it off again. Because this is a soft felt platter mat, that means you can put on a record or flip sides or take it off while the platter is spinning and it's not going to scratch your record. But if you want to be extra careful, that means you're going to be constantly turning it on and off every time you do one of those things. I am happy to report that these markings on the edge of the platter actually are strobe marks. The one all the way at the bottom is for 33 1/3 RPM at a line frequency of 60 Hz, which is used here in North America. The next one up is for 45 RPM at 60 Hz line frequency. And then the top two sets of strobe marks, which are kind of obscured by the overhanging edge of a 12-inch record, are for 50 Hz line frequency, which is used in Europe and most other parts of the world. So if I turn it on at 33 1/3 RPM, you can see the bottom set of strobe marks appears to be almost stationary. It's running a little bit fast, and I also notice it has some wow to it. You can see the dots kind of stop and then they move a little bit, and then they stop, then they move a little bit. And you can hear that in the sound as a variation in the pitch. Now it's normal for turntables to have a little bit of wow, but when you can actually see it in the strobe marks, then you know it's probably going to be audible. And here's 45 RPM. You can see that set of strobe marks is also indicating it's playing a bit fast. Here's the DC motor. It has no markings on it indicating who made it. And at first I thought these would be the adjustment trimmers for adjusting the speed. But then I noticed this is actually a single speed motor. There's only 2 wires going to it, which means the speed is actually controlled by the circuit board. So I'm pretty sure that adjustment trimmer on the back is for adjusting the speed. However, that trimmer on the back is actually only for adjusting the 45 RPM speed. So by tweaking that a little bit, I was able to get it to play at exactly the correct speed at 45 RPM, as you can see by how the strobe dots are now almost completely stationary. But for 33 1/3, you'll just have to live with whatever speed it comes set to, because I tried poking my screwdriver into those 2 holes in the motor, and neither of them actually have an adjustment trimmer inside. So the only adjustment this turntable has for speed is for 45 RPM. Nonetheless, I think those speed issues are still minor enough that anyone in the market for a less than $60 turntable probably wouldn't notice them. Especially since in this price range we're competing with suitcase players, which are definitely not known for impeccable speed accuracy and stability. Finally, let's hear this turntable play, first through the built-in speakers. So the sound is very mid-range heavy. It still sounds a lot better than the suitcase player, but it's definitely not high fidelity. I also noticed that the volume control is non-linear. Even when you turn it halfway up, it's just barely loud enough to listen to. Then you have to turn it up to about 3/4 to get it to a reasonable playback volume. And then the final quarter of the volume range gets from moderately loud to blaringly loud very quickly. It's a nice novelty that something that just looks like a standard component turntable actually has a built-in amplifier and speakers, but they're definitely not going to be the life of the party. If you're concerned about vibration from the built-in speakers causing problems with feedback and skipping, remember that the turntable mechanism is mounted on springs to isolate it from vibration. And indeed, even with my torture test tracks from Daft Punk, I do not get any problems with feedback or skipping, even with the volume turned all the way up. That's not to say it actually sounds good, because it doesn't, but at least it doesn't skip or cause feedback. Now for some direct hookup audio samples from this turntable, I thought I'd kick it off with one of my old favorites from X-Dreams with their Should Have Been a Hit song, Marianne.
edge of time. Just you and me, babe, the world's so far behind. We're as free as a warm breeze sailing across the sky. You put the magic in the music, I wanna keep you by my side. Whoa, take me to your star. Writing letters of forever, gonna send them through the sky. You touch me with a smile, the light is in your eyes. And the candle keeps burning, I'm burning all through the night. Whoa, take me to your star. Marianne, take me by the hand. Marianne, take me somewhere far. Marianne, take me to your star. I'm just a man of simple taste. You have no chance to see my face. My heart, my soul are for the race. Just the race. I started when I was a kid. Car racing was my only dream. Now I'm part of the racing team. It's time
I think you'll agree with me, that sounds fine. It has good frequency response with rich bass and clear treble, the stereo image is wide, and there's not a lot of background hiss or hum. But when I started playing some older records with more pronounced stereo separation and listening to it through headphones, I could tell something just didn't sound right. So I got out this Admiral Rare Earth Phosphor stereo demonstration record, and when I play this left-right identification track, at least if you're listening through properly set up stereo headphones or speakers, I'll think you'll hear what the problem is right away.
If your system is in balance, the sound you hear now should come from your left. Now you should hear the sound on the right.
So the left and right channels coming out of this turntable are reversed. You would never hear it through the built-in speakers because they're less than a foot apart. You don't really get any stereo separation from them anyway, but through the RCA jack outputs you can definitely hear it. I don't know if this problem applies to all these turntables or if it was just a production fault of this particular one, but either way, that's something simple that they should have caught in the quality control. I mean, if a Crosley Cruiser can get the left and right channels correct, then this kind of turntable should be able to do that as well. So overall, I actually like the design of this turntable, especially this nice wood grain finish, and it's surprisingly heavy. At first glance, this is a very impressive looking turntable, but there are just too many signs of poor quality control for me to recommend it. For example, so many of these are coming with cracked dust covers, and mine came with the totally wrong counterweight that I had to jury rig into place with some blue tack just so I could use it. And then this kind of cheap and floppy feeling tone arm. And then the more minor problems like the left and right channels being reversed, and that little bit of wow I noticed, which is probably caused by this cheap plastic platter, and it coming off a cartridge alignment protractor even though you can't align the cartridge. They obviously cut a lot of corners to sell this at such a cheap price, and to be fair, it's half the price of an AT-LP60X from Audio-Technica. And through the external output, it almost sounds as good as one because it uses the same cartridge. But you know what other turntable you can get for half the price of a new AT-LP60X? A used AT-LP60X. I just saw one on eBay which was listed as gently used, tested, and functional, and it came with a 30-day money-back guarantee, and it sold for $53, which is the same price as I paid for this turntable. And yeah, the AT-LP60X still isn't perfect. I mean, obviously in the grand scheme of things, it's still a very cheap turntable. I would just feel a lot more comfortable recommending it than this 1x1 Rock Pigeon turntable.